Hey everybody, welcome back to Electrofans PRO TALK, our new series of interviews and think tank discussions with electronic music movers and shakers. I'm your host, Kevin Pajak. We have as our special guest today, Galestian. Arthur Galestian is a producer, a DJ, remixer, and radio show host, as well as author of the book Nomadic Producer's Handbook. He's gotten support from the likes of Paul Oakenfold, Lange, Max Graham, Hernan Cataneo, Nick Warren, Armin van Buren, and Judge Jules, among others. His Facebook page describes his music as dangerously riding the borders of deep progressive house, melodic techno, and trance. Arthur, welcome to Pro Talk, man.
Hey Kevin, how's it going? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, awesome to have you on. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in music.
Um, how much time do we have here to talk about that? Because I can either make that a really long
Yeah,
story
it's
or
like your
condense it
life
for short.
story. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you can kind of ad lib it and like maybe a couple minute intro, like on in your background, and I guess
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
a little bit about your. Do you have formal training in music? Or are you like self taught? Like musical family. I guess that's sort of the usual kind of
So
things.
yeah, I do come from a musical family.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's side of the family, the piano
Mm-hmm.
has been a tradition for generations. So growing up, my sister and I, we both had to play the piano. At first, it was out of love, and then it was just purely out of discipline. And there was a time when I just did not want to do it anymore. It was not fun. And yeah, so I took lessons until about high school, and then I was just too busy with school to continue. And I think that's about the same time I started to fall in love with electronic music. So I just naturally wanted to know how this stuff is made, and I kind of went back to it. So yeah, and in hindsight, I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I didn't really start to take it seriously until college when I got involved in public radio. So I got involved with the local public radio station, which was also on campus. And I went in there and I was just blown away with all the vinyl they had in there and all the radio shows. It was just such a different outlet from what you'd hear on commercial radio. And there was an electronic music show already there. There were like one or two, I think. And yeah, really long story short, they said I could apply for an internship, and I did just purely for fun. I applied, and I was asked to co-host a show with someone, and that was kind of my foot in the door. I'd say to doing it on a somewhat professional level. Although at that point it was still a hobby,
Yeah, that was
and I
actually one of
started.
my other like official questions too. Is like I thought I had seen that you were a DJ in FM radio back in the day, and just wanted to see what that was like. So was that actually spinning vinyl records for that gig as well?
Yeah,
Okay,
because around that time, I was into this music for a few years by that point, and I had a pretty good
okay,
collection of music, and I started playing at house parties in college,
hmm
um, and at frat parties and stuff like that. So that kind of coincided with my time in radio, and yeah, at that time it was mostly vinyl. I'd do actually, yeah, all vinyl sets. Anytime I did a live set, it was all on vinyl. I did have some CDs and stuff that I would take in. I'd have guests coming on board, and that show grew. I have such fond memories from my time there. It was like KUCI 88.9 FM, and yeah,
so
the
that was
show
like college
grew to the
radio,
point
basically.
where yeah, but it
Okay, yeah,
wasn't just for college students. It was open to the community, so it was
okay,
kind of like KCRW or something like that, where if you as long as you were a member of the community, as long as you were living there, then you could apply for a show. So
okay.
but yeah, it was a really good experience, and yeah, I'd say at the height of the show, we were doing live broadcasts with the clubs nearby. So I was DJing around quite a bit, so I would bring guests from like LA and Orange County, and I'd basically have the promoters that I was working with come on board too, and then spoke to one of the guys who was working with Giant at the time, and we started having live broadcasts. So like Armin van Buren was playing at the local club, and we had like what Carl Cox and Dubfire and Miss Nine, and yeah, a bunch of really amazing acts above and beyond when they were on tour came through to the studio.
Yeah,
And I think
I
if you
think I
just
saw that.
Google it, you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
still see that interview.
So you had all these guys. You
Yeah,
brought
so
all those
it was
guys
a
physically in person into the studio to do the interviews with them, I guess, then, huh? Was it?
some of them were, yeah, physically in the studio. Others were through live broadcast. So we
Oh,
basically
okay.
set up
Okay.
a
Uh-huh.
remote, like a remote live
Oh,
stream
okay.
basically from the
Okay.
venue, and it was being broadcast. So if you weren't at the
Yeah.
club, you could tune into
Okay.
on the FM dial and hear the broadcast. So
Yeah.
so
That's
that was kind of
cool.
my in, and everything really expanded from there. It began to demand more and more of my time, and I
Yeah.
realized that I was just insanely passionate about this. So
Uh-huh.
that's the start.
Cool. Yeah. And actually, you have your own radio show, right? Global Entry. What kind of things can listeners expect to hear on the show? And actually, what I thought I might do is just pull up, just to show that our listeners, just play for them just a little snippet of what that's about. So, I guess, what are your intentions with Global Entry music-wise? What types of musical content do you like to spin on that show?
Yeah, it's mostly the type of music that I'm into at the moment, which is
Okay.
as far as genres, you'll hear mostly melodic house and techno, progressive house, deep house, a lot of organic house now too. The organic house down tempo, so like I don't know, maybe
Okay.
115 BPM all the way up to 128. So it's a pretty wide range of stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, I think in general, and it's not it's not 100% pinned to that sound, but there are like world influences in the type of music that I play from places that I've traveled, or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
just
Mm-hmm.
music that I think is kind of transcendental in some way, and has this ethereal quality to it in any genre. So,
Okay.
so yeah, it's basically just a reflection of my tastes over the last 20 years or so. Whether that's my travels or just the music that influenced me, the people that I've been working with, the labels that I've worked with, labels that inspire me, and that could be from anywhere in the world. So it's kind of why it's called Global Entry Radio. It's actually named after the travel program, which you can sign up for. If you're in the US, you can sign up for Global Entry, which gives you easier access in and out of countries. So that's where the name came from.
Okay. Yeah, let's pull up a clip, like a minute or so here, and let me share that with everybody. Yeah, let's see. 1 second here. Pull this up. Okay, this is Global Entry Radio from Galestian. Let's have a listen here.
Your attention, please. The following Galestian Airways destinations are now calling.
Los Angeles, Berlin, New York, Tokyo, Amsterdam, Bali, Bangkok, Ibiza, Buenos Aires, Dubai, Moscow, London, Tel Aviv, Montreal, Sao Paulo, Melbourne, Yerevan, Paris, Hong Kong, Mumbai, Las Vegas, Johannesburg, worldwide.
Taking off on a musical journey to the world's biggest dance music destinations.
From deep and progressive house to melodic techno and beyond.
This is Global Entry with Galestian.
Global citizens of the world, welcome to Global Entry Radio with me, Galestian. This month is a special month. In addition to the music you're about to hear on the show, be on the lookout for 2 exclusive mixes that I've done. One for Kiss FM in Australia, which I'm super excited about as it's the first time I'm breaking into that part of the world. And second, an hour-and-a-half long mix I did for Suprematic Sounds. You can check out my SoundCloud page for updates at soundcloud.com/Galestian Music. So, that said, to change things up, I'm going to keep this mix slightly more on the chilled out side. I connected with Third Son at a friend's birthday celebration in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia years ago. He's a prolific producer from the UK, and this is his track called Metamorphosis 1 off of his own Polymath record label.
Okay. Yeah, so that's just a sample of Arthur's show there, Global Entry. It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I just wanted to, spin a little sample of that for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, so that was your latest edition, June 2021. We just had to listen to too. So So it looks like you've done a couple guest mixes, stuff like that. Oh, speaking of guest mixes, yeah, I had on my list here too. So you did a mix for Paul Oakenfold's Planet Perfecto, and after that, you were signed as his label, actually, Perfecto Black. How did that come about, and what was the response been like for your, I guess, your career in music afterwards, after your association with Paul?
Yeah, I think I'm really grateful for those opportunities working with Perfecto Black and Paul Oakenfold. I think it's, if I had to choose one label that I've been consistently releasing on, and that still feels like home, I'd say it's that label.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when I was first getting into this music, Paul's music really grabbed me at the time, and I think he's just, he's contributed so much to the scene, and to be working with someone like that, it's really something I'm grateful for, and it's truly been an honor. So yeah, the first record that I signed to his label was actually it was just a promo. Actually, it was called Rituals, and I wrote it while I was in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think I
That was in
remember the track, yeah.
2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and actually, the intro to the radio show, the sample is from that track, because that was the first track that I signed to his label. So,
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I originally sent it to him as an unsigned promo, and he started playing it on his radio show. Just, it wasn't signed at all at the moment. It was just
Uh-huh.
unreleased, and he just started playing it on the radio show. And
Nice.
after a few spins, he decided that he wanted to sign it, since it was open. So that was really my first release with them, and I think everything kind of opened up from there. I think to date I've done 5 or could be 6 releases. I know at least 5. So it's been great working with the label, and yeah, I mean, he had me on as a guest on his Planet Perfecto radio show, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And we ended up collaborating on a track together in 2019, a track called Summer Nights, which was released in July of 2019. So yeah, I think just, one door opens up others, and you just got to walk through.
Yeah, and maybe once things more and more so open up again officially full on, maybe you can do some touring, gig with them too. Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to all possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, if you're listening. So yeah, so you're not only a producer but also a DJ as well too, right? What would you say is the most? Well, I guess I should ask you first too, like a little bit. I know obviously too, this is a hugely broad question, but your experience as a DJ, but yeah, a little bit about that, and what is the most memorable gig you've ever done as a DJ? Sort of 2-in-1 thing, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's the most memorable one, I'd say, recently, and there have been a lot of really, really good gigs.
Oh yeah,
but I'd
sure.
say recently the one that really sticks to mind the most, and that's because things have been closed down for such a long time.
Yeah.
My last club gig was in Berlin last year in February, and everything started shutting down pretty much right after that. And that was a 7-hour set, which I played, which, we started around midnight and went until 7 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it felt like it was just 2.5, 3 hours, when the promoter tapped me on the shoulder and said that they're closing the club. I was like, what time is it? And I take off my watch and everything, put my phone away, so I have no idea what time it is.
In the zone.
Yeah. And I was completely shocked when I realized it was over. And luckily that set is recorded, so we were able to record that set. It's on my SoundCloud page. It's
Have to
called,
check it out. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, live at Saiz Fargestern. It's split up into 3 parts, or you can listen to it in full on Mixcloud. But I'd say, yeah, that's one of my most memorable gigs. My most memorable gig simply because of the time that I felt like I was in a black hole, and everything just kind of went in warp speed.
That must be,
but
yeah, like totally absorbed in the moment. That I can see how that would be. The answer for that one, yeah. Just there was a set from Paul Van Dyk I remember I came across years ago. I think this was 2005, and I think it was Sunshine Live Spatial. I think that was a German show. Obviously, he's from Germany too, obviously, and it was like that. It was just like this mega multi-hour thing, and it's just the vibe of it is. I think that's a topic that I've covered before, and we're going to keep coming back to. Is just different music, virtual music, electronic music industry events I've gone to. Is just why are we in this? Is just the vibe and the passion. It's exciting. A lot of the stuff is exciting music. That's why at its best. That's why I think we're in the electronic music scene. Yeah. And especially when something in particular, like a certain track that's just over in your head. There was a Guy J track from the Igor D mix I premiered. It's just certain things that invoke kind of that, excitement in your mind. I'm sure sounds like that was kind of the vibe that was in your head for that gig. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've spun as a DJ in a lot of different countries, actually, right? Because then we're going to get to this too, that you literally are like a global like nomads. You've kind of shifted around. So maybe just talk a little bit briefly about like a couple of gigs and maybe some exotic locations or just various other locations around the world that you've played at.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I was living in Asia for a while, or traveling through Asia. So I had some really good experiences there. Played in Singapore. Japan was amazing too. Thailand. Burning Man as well. Back in the US, I think some of my best experiences were at Burning Man too. It's so surreal. So I think every country has something unique to offer. It's good to see how people respond to sometimes the same music. Sometimes they respond to different types of music better, but it's I think it's my gig in Japan definitely I'd say is one of those memorable ones. Burning Man for sure. I've been there 4 times, played there 3, and it's different every single time. There are very few festivals that feel like a different place every single time you go. And for me, personally, Burning Man is one of them. I think, if you go once, either you're going to love it or hate it. And for me, it's already been 4 times. So yeah.
How did that come about? Was some people that you knew, like other promoters, or you knew like one of the other DJs or people that were spinning there and that said, hey, we have a slot we can put you on? Or is it sort of or can you just kind of just start, break out some CDJs I've not actually been to it in a camp and just start playing, in your own little enclave sort of thing. Not sure.
It's kind of, it could be both. I mean,
okay.
The people organizing the camps there could ask you to play, or if you're with a smaller camp with some friends, you can take your own equipment and play. So there's like just different scales of parties happening all over the playa. So it's like really 24/7 nonstop. So you can really make of it whatever you want to.
Wow. Yeah, and speaking of geolocation, so you're currently based in Berlin and from Los Angeles originally. I guess first of all, why did you settle on Berlin as your current base?
It's really the music scene here that drew me. When I first got here, it was kind of, I didn't really have an intention of staying this long. It was just me coming by after Amsterdam dance events and to check it out and visit a friend. And yeah, the music scene here just really blew my mind. And the people I was meeting, the opportunities that were coming my way, the doors that were opening up for me. It was just, after some time here, I just realized that this is where I have to be. So yeah, musically, it's completely where my heart is. It's like, the melodic techno sound is really kind of pulsing through the city's veins, and that blend of progressive and techno, just, it's totally up my alley. So I felt like this is somewhere that I could really grow as an artist. I love the scene here, the venues here, the crowds here. It's just such like house and techno is in the lifeblood of the city. It's in the city's veins, and it's been like that since the 90s maybe, or maybe even sooner than that. I don't know, but it's been there for so long that it's like the default music that people listen to. So all the venues, and there's a lot of them. I think there's like, I don't even know what the exact number of venues would be, but I'd say at least like 15 or 20 of them that you could go to. I mean, everything's closed now, but at the time, it's like it's amazing how much is going on every single day, every single night, dedicated to this kind of music, and people just love it. So I think there's only one like top 40 or hip hop club that I can even think of off the top of my head. Whereas in most cities you go to around the world, and Berlin really is an exception in so many ways. Most cities you go to around the world, it's like house and techno is really underground. So, you know, if you're lucky to find one or two, maybe in the big cities, you'll have like a couple more venues, but I just loved it. And over the summer, it's gorgeous. You know, I'm a huge nature lover, so Berlin has a lot of nature, a lot of parks, really beautiful parks that are just teeming with life and greenery over the summer and the warmer months. So
yeah, I think I've seen your Instagram. You put some really nice looking spots. Yeah, beautiful like areas. Looks like around where you take like on weekends and stuff. You go for hikes and even in the city. That's a sign of a great city. Yeah, like totally when you have parks like that. Yeah,
yeah, and it's very walkable. You can get around. You don't need a car, so you can bike. It's a very bikeable city.
Yeah,
you can get around anywhere by bike or public transport. They have a great subway and like SkyTrain system. It's called the U-Bahn and the S-Bahn. So it's just it's really easy to get around. The music. So I mean, just the city has a lot to offer in terms of my own likes. So it was very natural for me. It wasn't like a rash decision. It was kind of just unfolded very naturally. So
yeah, it's interesting how like for example, like I knew like how big like electronic music was and dance music was like Europe wide, but I guess maybe it didn't hit me particularly how like how much of a percentage from what you're saying, it sounds like, at least especially in Berlin, that the music listener is really more into the electronic side of the house techno. I was like that totally makes sense where where you'd want to be there. And then the fact that you have like all these things, you know, going on every night, there's multiple things going on, ongoing basis. It's like an active, living, thriving scene. Yeah, I guess thanks for that. It's a great answer. It helps explain really why Berlin is the mecca that I think a lot of people think it is for the electronic music scene in general. Yeah. So compared to LA, I guess, how would you kind of compare, contrast the two scenes, like with the electronic and the dance music side, LA vis-a-vis Berlin?
So yeah, that's a good question. I think in LA, the people who love this music are also super passionate about it. Like, I think the scene that's in LA, the underground scene that's there, it's also great. I mean, I love the people in that scene, and everyone running that scene and the people kind of holding that scene together. They're super passionate about this music. Like they love it. And so it's nice to see that in LA as well. And I think it's growing, or I like to think that it's growing, at least. I don't know if there's any kind of bias there because I'm so deeply involved with the scene, but it's, LA has a great scene as well. It's just in comparing the two cities, like LA just doesn't have as many regular venues dedicated to this kind of music. Like at the moment, there are maybe like 3 or 4 venues, but EDM really isn't a thing here. Whereas I think most of the underground venues in LA have turned more towards EDM.
That's what I might imagine.
So there's really so really when you take that into consideration, you have only like 1 or 2 clubs that are playing underground music. And if you're gonna really like focus more on deep house and progressive and that sound, or melodic house and techno, you can maybe even say there's one. But LA also has a lot of one-off events. Like you have a lot of special events that are organized. It centers mostly around bigger international headliners, I think, in LA, whereas in Berlin you have that as well, but you have like Watergate, for example, that brings in a lot of big international acts. But there are so many other venues that are run by people just organizing these events. So I think the people who are going to those events are not necessarily looking for headliners. They just want to go and enjoy music, and it's more about the scene itself rather than being so headliner driven. So I think in Berlin you have both. You have like really big acts who are based here too. They have studios here, and Berlin is sort of their base as well. But I think you see a really huge, like locally driven event, like narrative as well. So So yeah, I think it's also the fact that everything in LA is kind of it's spread out, you know. So
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was
that's
thinking. Yeah, it doesn't lend itself to communal probably aspect as much. Where Europe it's more centralized. I think. Yeah, in the cities. Yeah. Hmm.
and I think that's you know I thought about this for a while, and I think that's huge because if you want to go to an event in LA, you know, for most people it's going to be a drive, and
Hmm.
um, you know, if you want to move to a different venue after that point, then you have to get in your car again and drive somewhere else, and most people are just not willing to do that. So that's one thing. The other thing is that everything shuts down at 2 pretty much in LA. Maybe, you know, some venues can stay open longer, like 4 or 6 sometimes. And then everything goes underground. So you have a lot of like, you know, warehouse events and stuff like that. But I mean, in Berlin, it's nonstop. It's 24 hours, and there are no limitations at all. So you can go to several venues in one night, and it's really easy to get around. You just leave, you know, hop on the train, or you know, sometimes even walk there. So it's really easy to keep things kind of connected. And I think, yeah, even though you have all these separate venues across the city, in some ways it feels more unified. Whereas in LA, just I mean, LA is massive compared to Berlin.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's
just
true.
everything
Yeah.
just seems a lot farther out. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that does have something to do with it for sure. I do love
Mm.
a lot of the events by the beach, you know, the piers that are organized in LA. That's kind of cool to see. But I think here in Berlin, you'd see events like that by the lakes
Okay.
in the summer. So yeah, I think the two cities have similarities and differences, but yeah, I mean, in Berlin, it's just like on overdrive.
Yeah. I guess sort of on a semi-related note, how would you kind of compare, like, I guess, the European cities like Berlin versus Amsterdam? I guess even more so in my mind. Like, I'd be curious to see your thoughts on Berlin versus Amsterdam, but also maybe throwing Paris or London in there too. You know, based on what experience you have of like being in those cities or other. You know, maybe even Italy. You know, I don't know, other places in Europe too. The main areas.
Yeah, so I think as far as the number of events and especially underground music, I think Berlin is still the mecca. Like you can get way more experimental as an artist in Berlin and have it be well received, whether you're doing
Hmm.
music or art. It's just it's very artsy in that way.
Yeah.
Whereas, I
Yeah.
mean, Amsterdam as well, but I think, you know, and this is just my opinion, it's subjective. Maybe if you ask someone else, you'd get a different answer. But I think Amsterdam, there are fewer events happening. They do, you know, there are more like festivals and stuff like that, like that have a bigger draw. Amsterdam does have more like of a commercial leaning to like managers and agencies and stuff like that are based in Amsterdam. They tend to do more like commercial, I guess, dance music. Although there is an
Okay.
underground scene for sure. You do have a pretty big underground scene there, but yeah, like it would be different in that regard compared to Berlin. So
Okay.
um, actually, a friend of mine made a pretty good comparison. He was like, yeah, and Amsterdam is where you go for like the business side of things, whereas in Berlin you go
Uh
there for the
huh.
bleeps and bloops.
Okay. Hence, I was, of
So
course, like I was just thinking too, ADE. Yeah, it's kind of like,
yeah, like yeah,
you know,
exactly.
yeah,
ADE is huge. And then if you look at some of the really big, like more commercial labels and stuff, they're all based in Amsterdam. Berlin has a lot of really
yeah. I was
awesome
just gonna
labels
say,
too.
yeah, like Armin van
Um,
Buren, like Ferry Corsten. A lot of those Dutch dudes are like, yeah, based out of big name guys out of Amsterdam. I think, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them. Yeah, it seems like to me, there's like a lot of blending of like trance dance kind of thing, and even some trance dance EDM. And back to your topic too about ED, more the EDM big sounds like big name, big box EDM side, sort of like LA, I guess, to contrast with Berlin. Yeah.
yeah, like
Okay.
I think big room EDM and stuff is definitely there's a scene for it in Amsterdam, and yeah, like a lot of the artists that are making that sound would probably be better off in Amsterdam, whereas in Berlin, you know, there isn't really. there really isn't much of that going on. Although you do have like bigger acts like that, based in Berlin as well. So it's just the volume. When you compare the volume, I think if you're going to do underground music, Berlin just is it caters to that a lot better. But like I said, like Berlin does have like festivals where it's huge acts and EDM is played, but you're not really going to find a club that's going to play that as much in comparison to like all the underground clubs.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so it sounds like number of venues as a whole, thriving, active scene going on constantly, 24 hours a day, and in Berlin. Berlin's more for the avant-garde, underground, experimental, and it's interesting how you brought up the point too about if you're independent, indie underground producer, you can kind of try stuff out and not have to worry about, oh, is it like mainstream enough, and you can actually grow your following. So if you're a melodic house guy, organic house, DJing, whatever, I can see, why that would be draw more people to want to be move, set up shop there. Yeah, start to make sense. Why?
Even if you're making music that doesn't have a name, if you're just making granular kind of experimental music, there's somewhere you could actually play that. Maybe it's like at a museum or whatever. I mean, people would be open to it. There's a way to organize that. So yeah, I think in terms of, there's this feeling of freedom that I feel in Berlin for sure. And I think it's just in the city's values. And you feel that, you feel that creatively for sure. So the city is very complex. I mean, there are a lot of layers here, there's a lot of depth to the city. So
sure. So I can imagine. So, and speaking of international destinations, sort of shifting gears over here. So you have a book I know entitled The Nomadic Producer's Handbook. What is that book about exactly, and what kind of information does it contain? What kind of message would you like to send through your book, Nomadic Producer's Handbook?
So I wrote that book during my travels, and it's I'd say it's partly addressing mindset and partly technical. A large part of it is mindset too, because there are certain mental limitations that I had to overcome myself to be able to live that kind of a lifestyle. And one of the limitations for me at the time was, how am I going to keep making, really good music that has great sound quality while I'm on the road, without being in the studio, like my studio in LA at the time. And there was a lot of trial and error involved in making that happen, and speaking to other engineers and working with different engineers and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and just putting my own knowledge and experience into practice. Buying gear that could work and that could not work, finding what gear do I really need versus what don't I need, because everything goes in your backpack. You want to make sure that everything that's in there is going to give you a lot of utility and not just something you may or may not need. So I had to make these essential decisions about what gear goes with me, what does not, how can I get results, without all the weight and the bulk, keeping things lightweight, and then choosing which gear that I can trust, because I may be somewhere where I have no access to, like a guitar center or something like that, or a Just Music, and I want to make sure that the gear I have is reliable. So it's really years and years of trial and error, and money spent on my end, and getting results. Like I said, when I was traveling through Japan, I wrote rituals, and that's when I knew that my system was working, because I was signing these tracks, and they were going really far, and I was really happy with the results of the music I was releasing. So I was getting a lot of questions from other producers just on that, like either they wanted to travel, maybe not with a long-term mindset that I had at the time. Like I was really aiming for long-term travel at that point, but I was getting messages and emails from producers who wanted to go traveling for like 2 or 3 weeks, and they wanted to take their rig with them, and they would email me and or message me and ask me what I'd recommend for them. And over time, this kind of became a guide. So I would write out a few things, and I'd put together some guides for people, and I began to expand on that. And so that's kind of where it started. It began as a as a written testament to my travels and my own processes. And a large part of that, like I said, was also mindset, because there are certain like limiting beliefs or mental limitations that you'd have to overcome, and a lot of fears as well. I mean, you're stepping into unknown territory. You're going into countries that you've never been before. You know, they're working in a different system. The culture is different. The language is different. So there are a lot of unknowns that seem to hold people back from wanting to embark on this, you know, journey in whatever capacity, like whether it's short term or long term. So I address all that in the book too, and a lot of that is also my own, you know, my own process overcoming those fears and those challenges, and also helping others overcome that too. So at the end, the point of the book is to, you know, it's targeted towards music producers who want to travel, and whether they're going on tour or whether they want to travel for fun and for pleasure. It's geared towards music producers who want to travel, and how you can make that happen so that you can use your experiences as creative input, and write great music. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's interesting too how you wrote one of your tracks, "Ritual on the Road." I guess I always think it's cool when I hear like producers and singer-songwriters when they talk about how they, I don't know, I guess it's really cool to me when they wrote something on the road, not just some like little sample snippet, but maybe something that kind of really turned out to be a cool track. And like you say, is with Rituals got picked up. That was your one that got picked up by Oakenfold, right? They have a great reception. Yeah, I mean, I haven't like played musically in other countries, but yeah, I've visited around Europe and other countries alone by myself, and yeah, it can be both a terrifying and exhilarating experience. But that really, I was just talking about this with a friend of mine the other night, how that experience of travel and being around other culture, exposure to other cultures, really sets you apart in some ways versus people that haven't. It's not necessarily like, of course, no one's like better or worse than anyone else, but it's a different set of experience that when you meet other people who have also traveled around too, that you can kind of relate with, or have also like lived in other countries too. I lived in France for a little while. I studied French like some years ago, and yeah, nice. It can be really scary, terrifying even sometimes, going on to different places where you're not familiar with. But that's how, as they say, that's how you grow. And so I guess, so you touch on that, the experiences from that, and I guess it's interesting too how you like draw together, combine like the mindset aspects with recommendations, I guess more on the technical side, like gear, production techniques, blend them together. Yeah, that's and by the way, to everyone, you can find out about Arthur's book at nomadicproducers.com. Just throw that out there too. I think do you offer that up for subscribers? Is it like an ebook where you can download that for free if you sign up for the newsletter? Do you have, or you had that at one time, or is it, how does that like?
So yeah, it's I do have some free guides that you can grab at nomadicproducers.com, and and you know, there is a paid version of the book, which is I think it's like 70 pages or so. It's available as an audiobook as well on Audible and Amazon. There's also a video course that you can take through Udemy. But yeah, during the pandemic, since you know, it was a lot of tough times for artists, and I realized that people are not going to be traveling. I basically made the ebook, and still you can download it. It's name your own price. So I felt like I didn't want to limit anybody out there because of finances. So I felt like that was pretty fair, given the current state of circumstances around the world. So so even the paid version is now just name your own price. So
similar to like a Bandcamp style, like a lot of people do that. I would call it like Bandcamp style for some producers. Okay, well, that's a good way to do that too, because that's sort of another side of like pricing, and for like music producers recouping stuff. But that's a good way to do that, because yeah, you do, a lot of folks don't have necessarily the budget, but versus free, maybe someone can actually donate a couple of dollars, a couple of euros, pounds toward what you've done. Yeah, that's a good way to do that sometimes. Yeah, again, it's nomadicproducers.com for everybody. So,
and I felt like this was a time that a lot of people are having wanderlust. You know, we can't really travel as much, and
yeah, it's true.
At least that way you can maybe build up some excitement for when things pick back up again. And you know, or as you're reading the book, you're kind of, you know, traveling in your mind to different places, and it's you know, there's that element of novelty that you can get through some mental stimulation rather than actually being somewhere, since that's not a possibility for a lot of people these days. So yeah, I felt like it is a pretty personal account, especially in some parts. I talk a lot about my own personal journeys there too. So, hopefully it'll give you an insight into my own thought process and how I was able to overcome my own fears and make that happen, since that was always something that was I really wanted to do. And I'm glad I did. So hopefully it inspires those of you out there who have wanderlust and a desire to create and share music with the world as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a sort of a semi-niche kind of thing where, I mean, maybe there's not a lot of things like that available for someone who'd want to be able to look up some solid advice on how to take the show on the road. It sounds like there's maybe not that many books available, and it's interesting. It sounds like too how that came about is born out of necessity. You started getting a lot of people questioning you about that. So you're like, oh, I guess there's a need for that. So write the book. And yeah, now that everyone's starting to slowly but surely travel again, I think there's going to be more folks interested in, let's check this out. Yeah. Speaking of the pandemic, so Arthur too, just tell us a little bit about what you've done musically during the pandemic. I guess it's been like a full solid year, and I guess a lot of people are saying they have a lot of free time. I can say for myself personally, for Electrofans, have been crazy busy, so I'm sure you've had some musical stuff you've been working on during this crazy pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. I've been working on music, doing a lot of experimentation too, just working on music that I have no intention of releasing, just kind of, a lot of times I'll just do these experimental tracks to push my own boundaries, and do things that I normally wouldn't, because maybe it's not appropriate for the genre, or it just wouldn't make sense in the type of music that I normally do. So I've been experimenting a lot with different types of sounds, and it has given me a chance to step outside of the normal workflow and the normal aim that I have when I'm creating music. I think one of the biggest differences has been that, pre-pandemic times, the music that I make is geared towards clubs and dancing, and so whenever I'm creating music in my mind, I'm thinking, well, how would this work on the dance floor? How would people react to this on the dance floor? Or what kind of a space would it create on the dance floor? What kind of an atmosphere or a headspace would it put people in? And I think the first few months of the pandemic, I still had that mindset. But then once I realized that there's really, nobody knows when this is going to end, I kind of began to get out of that. And so there were less limitations in what I was making. I didn't really focus so much on creating music for the dance floor. I just created on focusing music.
Seems like I saw other artists doing along a similar vein, doing trying different genres, or just going like kind of ballistic balls out. Just, okay, what can we try? Just kind of more experimental. It seems like I've seen other artists. I can't think of any particulars. It seems like I've seen other artists kind of go along similar veins last year or two because of the lockdown restrictions. Yeah.
Yeah. And, definitely spent more time, like playing piano and just learning more about things that I normally wouldn't really have the time for, or just wouldn't have a reason to, because it doesn't directly apply to what I was doing. So I just followed my curiosity and saw it as an opportunity to experiment with things. I did launch a label as well. I launched my own label based off of the radio show called Global Entry Recordings. So it's an offshoot of Global Entry Radio.
Cool. We're going to play a track. You did a collab with a producer called Cebu, Hindsight. Maybe you can set this up for a little bit for us. Tell us what that was like and that's about.
Yeah, sure. So Cebu is the vocalist from the band Capital Cities. They're most known for their song Safe and Sound, but they have really, really great music, and I love what Cebu does. He's a great songwriter, great person, just really easy to work with, easy to get along with, and we wrote this track together called Hindsight. So he's the songwriter behind it. He wrote the lyrics and the vocals behind it. So the track went really well. We were both really, really happy with it. And we had a very specific way that we wanted to get it out, and a timeline that we wanted to release it. So after we considered it, we felt like it was best to do to do it on our own, and that's kind of where the idea to launch the label was born. So it's basically an offshoot of the show. So it's a similar sound to what you'd hear on the radio show. At this moment, it's mostly an outlet, for me to release music that I'm working on and people who I'm collaborating with and other artists who I'm working with. So there's a very specific purpose behind it. But yeah, it's tied very closely into the radio show. So I think if you're a fan of the radio show, then you'd be a fan of the label as well.
Okay, yeah. So let's check out Hindsight. Right here, this is Galestian and Cebu. This is the first release, is it, on your new label, Global Entry Recordings?
Yeah.
It's Hindsight. Let's have a listen here.
Hindsight.
All right, that was let's see. There we go. Hindsight from Galestian and Cebu. Yeah. So when did that track come out actually?
That was released in April.
Okay, so it's pretty new.
And we have a remix from Olivier Giacomoto. I think he did a fantastic job on the remix.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. What's the reception for that been like so far for that one?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been supported by like Nora and Pure. She played it on her radio show.
Oh, okay. Wow, nice.
Nicole Moudaber, which was awesome. Benassi as well.
Oh, geez, nice.
So yeah, Joris Voorn played it as well. So yeah, it's gotten some really good support, and yeah, we're both really excited.
Cool, yeah. I thought I'd play one other track too. So you had another, I think this is one of your other more recent releases, Dreaming, with Brooke Higgins on vocals. It's on Click Records.
Yep.
Let's see. When did that track come out actually?
So that track, I wrote that in the summer of 2019 originally, and I played it at Burning Man for the first time that year. And so it definitely has that. I mean, it was inspired from Burning Man, basically, like the feeling that I have when I'm out there. So it's very optimistic. It feels like sunshine to me. And Brooke Higgins is she's a Berklee College of Music graduate, so she did the vocals on that, and I thought her vocals were perfect for the track. So that was originally written in 2019 and released in I think it was in January of 2020, and the original was released. And the label head of Click Records, his name is Stefano Ricetta. It was originally released on a compilation, and he wanted to give it a proper release on its own as an EP. So so there's a new version that was released just recently. I think it was in May. So there's the original on there. We have a dub mix as well, and then we have the Stefano Ricetta remix. So he did his own remix of it, and I think he did a great job with that as well. So So that's kind of a backstory behind it. It's got some history going back to Burning Man.
Nice. Burning Man inspired track from Galestian, Dreaming, featuring Brooke Higgins on vocals. Let's check it out. That was Dreaming, and now you can totally, I think, pick up some of that mystical, enchanted vibe too, with the kind of that little 2-minute there snippet there of it. Yeah, nice work. So these are two your more recent works, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Those two are released. Those are my most recent ones from this year. So it's nice to hear that every single time. It reminds me of a lot of good times on the playa.
Great, yeah. Do you have any upcoming gigs lined up at the moment, Arthur? I know things are still, I feel like the opening up process sort of still like in its infancy, but do you have anything, lined up particularly?
Yeah, there's nothing that's been finalized and concrete, but yeah, there are some potential gigs on the horizon. I don't want to mention any of them since it's not final, but yeah, I think things are slowly starting to shape up. You can always check my website, galestianmusic.com. I always put up my gig dates there. There haven't been any additions for a while, but yeah, whenever a gig's announced, it's always put up there. You can also track me on Songkick or Bands in Town, so it'll automatically send the notification as soon as a gig is announced, and you can do that through my website. So
cool. Yeah. No. So yeah, do you have what are your plans actually for when everything is full on open again, or do you really have any? You still waiting till it actually happens as far as that goes officially?
I definitely am really looking forward to non-essential travel, just traveling for the sake of being able to travel freely and having friends come by and visit. I think a lot of people are just really waiting for that again, to be able to travel freely and without worry. So I think the vaccinations are rolling out really, really quickly. In the US
Yeah.
for sure. I think
Yeah.
here in Europe now, it's at least in Germany, it's at a point where it's open to everybody. So I think it's going to be rolling out a lot quicker. So yeah, I think for me it would be the freedom of travel. I think it's something I definitely miss.
Yeah, I know it's a big one for you. Yeah, but for anyone, yeah, it really. Yeah, I was gonna say actually too, when you're talking about mindset, that's definitely hit everyone literally over the head so hard this last, year. And I think I'd say also because for those of us working within the music industry, because it's just so tough to really make any traction headway. I think that topic is a great one regardless. And some of the music events that I go to, there's one by a woman named Elaine Wang, who I'm going to hope to get on here. One of these next upcoming interviews, runs a company called Neon Owl. She has dealt with that topic. And I think there's been other ones, Song Trader, I think is a company that did that's been a huge topic. And one of the cures for that, yeah, it totally is change of scenery and your surroundings from travel. Yeah. Reinvigoration of your psyche and soul, even without the music side, but then for your work in music too, you had to reinvigorate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
And
it's great,
of course to see
along.
and seeing clubs open again too. I think at least in Europe, the summertime is fine. There are so many chances to do outdoor events, but once things start cooling down as we get closer to the winter, it would be nice to be able to see friends and have events indoors again. So that's only possible once everything is back to normal. So yeah, lots of things to look forward to, but in the meantime, all we can do is adapt and make the most of it. So
for sure.
That's kind of where the world is at now.
Yeah. And again, you can check out all the latest and greatest on Arthur's website at galestianmusic.com. And it's a great website too. You've got very comprehensive too. You've got tons of info on all the different topics. So and also soundcloud.com/galestianmusic. I think you're on Mixcloud. And again, the book, really interesting book that Arthur did that we just discussed earlier in the interview too, you can check out at nomadicproducers.com. And want to play one more track from you here too, Arthur. So this is upcoming business, right? A track All For You. It's going to be coming out on Iconic Noir. I think you said the release date got pushed up to July 5th. Set us up a little intro on track All For You.
So that one was written in Berlin, and it's different from what I normally do. It's kind of like a mix of, in my estimation, like a mix of progressive house and a little bit of indie dance in there too. So it was kind of hard for me to categorize, but
okay.
That was really me experimenting with some sounds, and I was like, well, how can I bring these two together? Because I had these really lush pads and like this aggressive bass sound that I really, really liked. And I think at first I was like, well, can these really two go together? And I think they can. So that's that the track kind of was based around that, and I found a good home for it. So Iconic was one of the first labels that I released with back in 2017. I think I signed with them in 2016, and still to this day, it's one of the most played out releases that's been put out. So I think at the time Iconic was looking for a good remixer, and Ezekiel Arias ended up doing a remix of my track called Tell Me, which got huge support from like Nick Warren and Hernan and all the progressive guys at the time. So
nice.
So when I sent this track to them, I felt like it was kind of things coming full circle again, because they really did help get my releases out, especially in South America where progressive is really big. So
yeah, for sure. Iconic, yeah, that's kind of one of the more, I think, widely known labels for the deeper progressive, yeah, for sure, type thing. Yeah.
So okay. Yeah, it's good to be back on the label again, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, when you said progressive house and indie dance too, I thought of another thing, Electrofans too. That's sort of one of our fortes that that we like to cover. So, all right, let's check out a little sample here of Galestian's All For You. It's going to be coming out July 5th on Iconic Noir. Here's the radio edit. Let's have a listen.
It's all for you.
All right. That's great stuff, man. Yeah, again, that's all for you. It's going to be coming out on Iconic Noir on July 5th. You heard it first here on Electrofans. So awesome. Good stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that probably will cover it pretty well, I think, for interview today. Arthur, yeah, was there any other last comments or, just anything you'd like to say that about anything you're going to be doing upcoming or anything like that for our Electrofans listeners?
I think we pretty much covered it. Yeah, if you guys want to stay in touch with any upcoming dates or releases, my website's galestianmusic.com. You can also subscribe to my Global Entry radio show for free. It's a podcast. It's also on over 50 different outlets around the world, like Mambo Radio in Ibiza. I think it's 89.4 FM, di.fm, or you can subscribe to the podcast if you want to get it. And yeah, you can find that at globalentryradio.com.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and the hub again for all of Galestian music is going to be at galestianmusic.com. So
right,
make sure to check that out. So yeah, Arthur, thanks a lot for. It's been almost a year in the making. I promise you're going to be one of the first guests. So second episode of the series Pro Talk. So yeah, it's been great having you on, man. And so yeah, I look forward to keep up with your work. Thanks for sharing some of your new and upcoming music from us too. Look forward to checking that out and getting back to things in Berlin. So yeah, thanks for joining us, Arthur, and happy safe travels, and we'll see you on the flip side. Take care.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on, Kevin, and thank you to your listeners. I appreciate you guys listening, and it's great connecting with all of you.
For sure. All right. Peace out, guys.
Take care.
Till next time.